Hey everybody, welcome back. We are continuing our journey through Michael Hague's 6-stage plot structure. 2 weeks ago, we covered the first stage, which was the setup, and talked about how you can decide where your story should start to make sure you're creating a great hook for your readers and a great base for your story as you move forward. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I will put the link above so you can start there. But now that we've covered the setup, that leads to turning point number 1, which is the opportunity, or what's more commonly known in the writing craft communities as the inciting incident. So let's talk about what that is and some of the most common misconceptions that you'll run into as you start to plan and write your own inciting incident. So there are a ton of names for this turning point. Michael Hague's turning point is called the opportunity. As I mentioned before, it's also called the inciting incident, but I've also heard it called the call to adventure, the catalyst, the trigger event. There's tons of names for it. So what is it? Whatever you want to call it. It's something that sparks change and conflict in the main character's life in direct contrast to the norm that you've established. So jumping back to our setup conversation. And it's something that changes and or strengthens the main character's goal and motivation. Basically, it's a change that comes into the main character's life that sets them off on their journey for your story. And it happens just as the setup is fully forming, again, highlighting that contrast between their norm and this new change, whatever it may be. And it generally happens right at that 10% point. Now, again, those percentages, as we talked about, are more guidelines in books than actual rules.
The code is more what you call guidelines than actual rules.
Like they are sort of the hard lines in screenwriting. It doesn't have to be right at that 10%. If you haven't finished the whole book, you wouldn't know if it's 10% at that point. But if you're somebody that likes to be very defined and you like to go in with a bigger plan, right around that time is when generally that inciting incident, that opportunity happens. And again, I encourage you with the books that you're reading currently, find that inciting incident, not only to see what other authors are doing. It's always really great to have more examples, more comps, everything like that, especially within the genre you're writing in, but also then you can look at the bottom at that percentage. Now, keep in mind, that's also including the title page and the copyright and everything like that. But you can look at that percentage and see where that's hitting and sort of see not only whether or not that 10% hits all the time, what you tend to enjoy as far as a ratio of setup to inciting incident, as well as a lot of genre expectations. Anyway, once you get to that inciting incident, it doesn't need to be very long. It's a scene, a chapter, even just a moment that really changes forever the main character's life or situation. But even though it isn't long, it is important to get it right before you move on to the rest of the story, because as the call to adventure tag suggests, it is the start of your character's journey. So let's talk about the 3 most common misconceptions that authors have as they're planning their inciting incident or their turning point. Number 1 is that it's always a bad thing. It doesn't have to always be a bad thing. Yes, it is commonly, so if there's a death, an accident, a mischance, that does spark a lot of change and conflict. So it can gravitate more towards the negative. It is very popular, but the inciting incident can be positive as well. It could be that the main character came into a lot of money, they got accepted into their dream school, they won an award, anything like that. That still has the opportunity to spark change and cause chaos and conflict in the main character's life. It doesn't have to be a bad thing to affect their lives. It can be a good thing as well. The second misconception is that it's always a big change. Again, this sort of ties into the idea that it should be a bad thing and a big change. So obviously a death in the family is generally a really big change, or getting into an accident so the main character breaks both their legs, anything like that. The big change in your life. You're going to be dealing with that conflict and the ripples of that moment for a long time to come. And that can be a really good inciting incident, but it doesn't have to be a big change. Starting small can be powerful as well. And you see this a lot in the fake dating trope. So to give you an example, the main character agrees to fake date the hero for whatever reason. Their lives may not change all that much right at the very beginning. So if they were very studious and they liked to stay at home, go to class, they're very regimented, everything like that, you might see that they have to go to some parties with the hero, they have to do some things that are a little bit out of their comfort zone, but nothing huge yet. And then as the conflict starts to build, as people start to find out that they're dating, as there are more issues with their social circle, maybe an ex-girlfriend, everything like that, you build and build and build to that bigger chaos to where then their life is completely changed. But it started with a small change in the beginning, and that can be just as powerful as a big change. And then the third most common misconception is that the main character's goal always must change. As I mentioned above when we were talking about what an inciting incident is, it is something that is going to affect the main character's goal, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to change. Many times it's something that's going to strengthen the main character to go towards that goal even more. The more common thing to do is, yes, change the goal. So if the main character wanted to be a track star and they get into an accident and they break their legs and they can no longer be that track star, obviously their goal, their motivation has to change. But if it's something like they wanted to graduate college and suddenly a parent dies and they're now taking care of their younger siblings, they have to figure out where the money is coming from, how they're going to pay for college, everything like that. There are two options there. It could be that their goal changes and they decide to take their life in a different direction. So their goal is no longer to graduate, but to make a safe home life for their family and become happy as whatever they want to be in the future. Or it could be that they double down on that goal and they have to become even stronger and figure out more ways to make their life work now as it is to still achieve that goal, to still graduate from college. And both ways are powerful. Both ways are unique characters fighting for what they want and dealing with the chaos as it comes. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a goal change. It can be the same goal and a shift in either motivation or a shift in how they're going to meet that goal. And so these common misconceptions are really what trips a lot of authors up, because they go into it thinking it has to be a big deal, a big change, a really negative, inciting incident, something that's going to just completely wreak havoc on the main character's world. And it can. And again, that is a very, very powerful turning point that you can have in your story. But if that doesn't match who the main character is, if that doesn't work with the story that you had in mind, that's okay. You can also have it be a quieter incident. You can have them strengthening their goals instead of having to change them. You could have it be a good thing that causes a whole ton of chaos in their life instead of a negative thing. There are so many different ways to make the inciting incident work for you, work the way your story needs it to, so that your vision is coming alive on the page while still having it be a very powerful moment, setting the main character and your readers up for the rest of the journey down the line. Which then, once you've introduced your inciting incident and everybody's moving forward, you then move into the next stage of this story structure, which is the new situation. So hopefully you now have the tools to start to write or evaluate your inciting incident and make sure it is a strong catalyst to capture your readers and keep them invested. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or if there's anything else that you would like to know more on. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so you can know when new videos are coming up and you can see the rest of the series as we continue to explore Michael Hague's 6-stage plot structure. Next week we'll be talking about May book releases, so you won't want to miss that. There are some awesome books coming out in May, and then the week after that we'll continue this series with the next stage, which is the new situation. So until next week, keep writing.